Why does human drive recede? Is this an inevitable consequence of aging, a simple biological fact, or is there a deeper, more systemic reason? This is an exploration into the architecture of fading ambition.
The common narrative is one of depletion. It tells us that ambition is a finite resource, a fire that burns brightest in youth and then dims. We assign blame to predictable forces, fatigue, the weight of responsibility, the arrival of a pragmatic realism. But this model is incomplete. It mistakes the symptom for the cause. The data suggests ambition does not just vanish.
You see, when observed at scale, the trajectory of ambition isn't random. It follows a predictable arc. Across cultures, industries, and individuals, we see a consistent pattern, a period of early expansion, a phase of midlife stabilization, and then a gradual contraction. If the cause were merely personal circumstance or exhaustion, the decline would be chaotic. Its uniformity suggests a different conclusion.
The consistency of this pattern implies that ambition is governed by an underlying set of rules. Its decline is not a personal failure, but a systemic outcome. So this analysis will move beyond individual stories to investigate the internal and external systems that methodically recalibrate ambition over a human lifespan. We're going to examine the architecture of its decline.
So, we've established that ambition declines in a patterned, non-random way, which points to a structural cause. To understand its decline, though, we first have to define the mechanism itself. What precisely is ambition from a structural point of view?
Ambition is more than just desire. It's more than talent. It is an active, energy-intensive process, the projection of a possible self into an unknown future. This active projection isn't innate or automatic. It's conditional. It actually requires a specific operational environment to function.
And three core conditions are necessary for this projection to happen. First, you need a fundamental belief that a different future is possible. Second, a tolerance for the inherent risks of pursuing that future. And third, the availability of surplus psychological energy to fuel the effort. Now, these are not independent variables. They function as an interconnected system. If just one component is compromised, the entire structure is weakened. And over time, all three are subjected to systematic pressure.
The process of recalibration starts from within. The biological and psychological systems that supported early ambition, they don't break down. Instead, they shift their primary function.
Neurologically, the brain's reward systems change their sensitivity. In youth, our dopamine pathways are highly responsive to novelty, to exploration, and potential gain. This incentivizes expansion. With age, this system recalibrates. The chemical reward for novelty diminishes, while the perceived value of stability and preservation increases. This isn't degeneration. It's a strategic optimization toward maintaining the existing, complex system that is your life.
Ambition feeds on risk, but our appetite for risk isn't a fixed trait. As we build our lives, careers, relationships, financial obligations, the stakes of the game get higher. The perceived cost of failure escalates dramatically. A failure at age 20 is a data point, an inconvenient but valuable lesson. A failure at age 40, however, can threaten an entire ecosystem of dependencies. The internal risk calculator recalibrates accordingly.
Think of your mental and psychological energy as a finite budget. Ambition is a significant investment in growth. It's an expansionary project. But as life gets more complex, an increasing portion of that budget must be allocated to maintenance. Maintaining a career, a family, your health, social networks, it all requires constant energy. Gradually, the demands of maintenance crowd out the resources available for expansion. Growth now has to compete directly with stability.
An early identity is fluid. It's a state of potential that allows for wide-ranging experimentation. But over time, through a series of choices and commitments, that identity solidifies. You become known for something specific, relied upon for a particular function, and defined by a history of actions. This solidified identity is a stable structure. Ambitious projects that require radical reinvention introduce volatility, and that threatens the coherence of this established narrative. The system begins to resist disruptive change.
Now, this internal recalibration towards stability doesn't happen in a vacuum. It's mirrored and reinforced by external systems that exert a constant formative pressure.
We all exist within a field of social expectation. This field isn't uniform. It exerts different pressures at different life stages. In youth, the expectation is to strive, to grow, to become more. Society rewards this, but in midlife, the expectation shifts. The new mandate is to stabilize, to consolidate, to protect what you have.
Ambitious disruption that was once praised is now often viewed as irresponsible, even reckless. This social gravity pulls inward, toward the mean. Ambition is a bet on the future. Its calculus is therefore highly sensitive to our perception of time. A long future horizon amplifies the sense of possibility. It makes large, uncertain, long-term investments seem rational. But as that perceived horizon shortens, the calculation shifts. The value of immediate stability increases, while the potential payoff of long-term risk diminishes. A finite future logically produces more conservative strategies.
Our economic and social institutions are optimized for predictability. They function most efficiently when their components, people, behave in predictable ways. Ambition, by its nature, is a source of volatility, and while this volatility is tolerated, even encouraged in the young, it becomes a liability beyond a certain age. Systems subtly begin to channel individuals away from high-risk, expansionary roles and towards stable, maintenance-oriented functions. This reinforces the internal drive toward preservation.
So when the internal recalibration is observed, alongside these external pressures, the evidence converges. It points toward a final hypothesis about the fate of ambition.
Ambition doesn't simply fade away from neglect. The data suggests it is traded. It's exchanged for other highly valued states, for certainty over possibility, for social belonging over individual striving, for systemic stability over disruptive growth, and for the deep comfort of reduced risk. This isn't a single conscious transaction. It's the emergent outcome of thousands of micro-decisions made over decades.
This trade happens in small increments. It's executed with every choice to prioritize the known over the unknown, the secure over the potential. And because the process is so gradual, it is almost invisible to the individual undergoing it. What society might reframe as gaining maturity could in fact be a slow, rational, and systemic adaptation to comfort.
If ambition contracts as stability increases, what does that suggest about the relationship between comfort and growth?